freedomtalkradio.co.uk.
Let's go!
This is the most diverse, most amazing, one of the funniest radio stations you could ever listen to on the internet. I've heard so much stuff from the ups, the downs, the left, the right.
The politics, the non-politics, the schmolitics, whatever you want to call them.
It's great.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is freedomtalkradio.net, and you are listening to Freedom Talk Radio.
From beautiful Ceylon in southeastern Michigan.
Around the world.
This is the 2009 Top 10 Webcam in the World winner. This is SETV.
Commonwealth Court of Wales radio show on Freedom Talk Radio. My name's Kevin Edwards. I'm your host tonight. Also listening with us is Darren Latham, the head sheriff of the Commonwealth Court of Wales. All right, Darren?
Very good, Kev.
And same as last week, in the background we've got Andy Peacher there, making sure we don't push any buttons that's likely to blow up the studio. Also online, we're very lucky indeed to have with us tonight as our guest speaker, we've got Mark Ceylon from the Get Out of Debt Free website. So, hi Mark, how are we doing?
Hi guys, I'm doing good.
Thanks very much indeed for coming in, Mark. Much appreciated. This is our second show, so we'll just sort of get down to some nitty-gritty. And as we progress through the show, we can be contacted on this program. Our email address for anybody who's got a question for Mark or anybody in the room, it's the Common Law Court of Wales at outlook.com, or there's a phone number you can come into, which is 001 347 677 0812, and that costs about 5 pence per minute. So if you have any questions for myself, Darren, or Mark, either email us them in or give us a call. So we're off and running. Mark, once again, mate, thanks very much indeed for coming in. Just your website's well known. You're well known. You're doing great work along with other admins, etc. There. Just briefly to start us off, how did you get into this? What you're doing now. How did you get into it in the beginning? What prompted you to go down the road of looking at common law and looking at remedy, etc. for obviously the downtrodden masses, which we are?
Well, it was 2006. I was running my own minibus company, and the beautiful government brought in a rule or a statute that meant that didn't come into effect until 2008. But when that came into effect, I knew that was the end of my business. So I tried to sell my house and everything before it got to that point, but that just never happened. Then, of course, the crash came into it. It's almost like everything was engineered to kick off in 2008. I nearly lost the house, but literally managed to sell it 2 months before it was due to be repossessed. And I had a little bit of equity in it, and I thought, now, shall I pay all those back? Because by then I'd realised I was being ripped off. Or shall I go on holiday? And I went on holiday, and then I started digging once I'd recovered from being homeless at one point, well, virtually, because we had to sell the house, or it was about to be repossessed, we were making ourselves intentionally homeless and weren't eligible for any help whatsoever. So at that point, I did what I did to survive, and then started digging into the financial system. I joined Get Out of Debt in 2009. It was very different then to what it is now, and it's come along in leaps and bounds to the point now we've nearly got 60,000 members, and we've saved our members well over 12-15 million. We don't know the full amount because we get trolls come on from time to time and put fictitious amounts.
That's brilliant news since it's only begun from 2009, and my own personal testimony by using the the 3-letter system that you've got there that I managed to get out of an unlawful charge of myself for £15,000. So, the 3-letter system does work, and of course, a few meetings ago that we had with the Common Law Court of Wales, we had a few new people who'd come into the meeting who basically came in waving checks around, Mark, and letters from, credit companies or, fictitious loan companies that there was no contract. They'd gone through the 3-letter process, and as a group, ourselves, we kind of looked at each other and thought, hell, we've actually started to arrive ourselves. And it was just the fact that there was evidence, there were people coming out happy who'd been worried for so long over, debts that were statute barred, the fact that third-party interlopers were likely to knock on their door. So, the work that you've done and your team with GetOutOfDebtFree.org, mate, is phenomenal. And, I'm sure a lot of people would love to, give you a big pat on the back and say your thanks and, keep going, because what you're doing is invaluable for all of us.
Well, I agree, and it still gets to me when people post and say, if I hadn't found your site, I would most likely not be here now. And when I read about people that do take their lives because of debt, when you realise how the system works and that you never really owed it in the first place, it really grinds you. And I just wish I could do more. And as you probably see, I do my best. I'm virtually at this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In fact, I even got messaged on a messenger program on New Year's Day saying, take a day off. But I replied, they don't take a day off, and until I've got rid of them, I don't take a day off.
Well, it's quite funny because I got a phone call on New Year's Day this year. At that point, I had my mobile number on the website that I run and covers the Justice for Linda Lewis campaign. And, you speak about trolls and things coming in. You soon get, your bullshit meter can soon smell them out. And this was somebody who was deliberately in to basically try and, upset my new year, but it didn't happen. I played the game for 5 minutes, but that went on. But, the good thing is that when trolls start coming into your site, you're having an impact, mate, and you're doing the right thing and you're helping a lot of people. And the ones that are coming in trolling are the ones such as bailiffs, debt collectors, etc., whose own finances are being severely hit because they can't terrorise anybody and get them to make payments anymore.
Absolutely, and I absolutely love it when people do start standing up for themselves. Probably the worst thing, and I do actually tend to say it quite a lot, but the worst thing for everyone else to get is that it is just a game. Now, obviously, some are killing themselves over this game. That's because they don't know the rules. But when you realise it's a game, and anyone that comes on the site, you'll see them all posting. You can tell it's their early posts, and it's, I'm really nervous. I'm really unsure. And then they send that first letter off. And when they've done that, it's almost like straight away there's a burden released from you because you've done it now. You've sent the letter off and you wait for the replies. And the thing to do there is while you're waiting for the replies, if at all you'll get one, which is no guarantee, read in the forum about the specific debt collector or bailiff or whoever it is that's chasing you. And as you read through, you'll see what replies everyone else has had. And then when you get a reply back, if you get one, you can compare it and say, oh, that's exactly what they said. And suddenly, it's like you break through a second barrier of fear. And within a month, you've got the newbies on there within a month are laughing and saying, I can't believe this works. It sounds too good to be true. And we've all been told, if it sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. But then they start posting in the success forum, this stuff really works. And it does.
Of course it works. And, the point you make that you're well experienced in it now, to a point, so am I. But we all started off somewhere. Now, I haven't paid, for example, my TV license for, I think it's 7 years. I haven't paid water for 7 years, etc., etc. But I remember about 8-9 years ago coming home from work one day and finding, the red envelope through the door. The TV license inspector was called and literally coming in and, literally crapping it, going onto the internet and then setting up a direct debit straight away. Then I got into, the get out of debt free, and you don't have to pay this, you don't have to speak to them. TV license inspectors have got no more power than a milkman, and you don't have to contract, say nothing, you don't have to pay. And I stopped paying it, and sort of 6 months later, Sunday, 1 o'clock, this guy with a jacket looked very official, banged on the door. He said, "Are you Mr. Jones?" I said, "No, I'm not." "Oh, my name's Darren." Quick flash of the ID from the TV license. I said, "Uh-huh." I said, "I don't want a contract with you." And he tried his question, said, "Look, no contract with you, mate, just get lost, will you?" and banged the door in his face. And that was quite awesome for me, because, I did close the door and came in, and I probably looked a little bit white, but the guy just actually went away, And obviously the research I've done, they obviously, continued to harass me in some, what I call it, criminal harassment for quite a while. I've now basically had no contact with them for over a year now, I think it is. And, it got down to a point. I had a rather fat woman with bad hygiene who tried the same trick with me once, who got the same response. And she decided to come back a couple of weeks later, but was too terrified to knock the door and just put it through the letterbox and then run away. So luckily I saw her heading down the street and shouted at her, and she just kept going, So it's great once you get over the fear of doing it, and you know that you're in the right, that you're not going to be scammed anymore. And it is your right, and just before we started the show, we had a little bit of a chat, and what you said, and perhaps you can, explain on this. When we get out of a debt that was fraudulently, allegedly money lent to us, we're not getting away with anything. What's your interpretation of that?
Well, when you understand that, if we deal with loans, for instance, almost everyone has been to a bank or a loan shark or whatever, and they've taken out a loan and they believe that the bank has lent them some money. But if you take out a £10, a £5, a £20, a £50, if you've got one, I haven't, but if you've got one, and you read the very small print just under the top, it will say, "I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of whatever note it is." So that note is what's known as a promissory note. And that originally came round because people were taking their gold to a bank, putting it into the bank, and the bank was giving them a receipt, a promissory note, promised to give them gold back. Now, the bankers realised that not many people were actually coming to get the gold back. In fact, what was happening is they were just trading with the promissory notes. So they started creating money of their own, or promissory notes of their own, and became very rich. Well, it's easy to do if you just write your own promissory notes. And when we found this out, we realised that when you go to a bank to apply for a loan, you fill out a thing called an agreement. Now, that agreement has the number in letters, the number in words, just like any other promissory note. And then, when you sign it, with your signature, just like on any of your promissory notes, your 10s, 20s or whatever, it becomes a promissory note. So you've actually created the money that the bank is going to scam you into believing they've lent you. You've created it. And what they do with that agreement stroke promissory note then is they securitize it. They basically sell it on to other banks and the type, because they know that the banks that buy it, they know they're going to get the original amount back plus interest. Now, of course, if you created that promissory note, the original amount, and then they fraudulently pretend to lend it to you, and then they want you to pay it back plus interest, well, you're effectively paying back the money that you created, but they conned you, scammed you into thinking that they had lent you something. And it's very easy to do if you ever go into a bank and you want to make any payments into it or withdrawals or anything. You'll see all they do is they push a couple of keys on the keyboard, and they'll say, that money is now in your account. So they haven't phoned down the Bank of England and said, can you print some money off and send it up to us? They don't keep large amounts of money, cash, actually in a bank anyway. And this, you'll know this if any of you's ever had to go and draw a few £1,000s out. Sometimes they'll say, come back tomorrow, come back the next day. And that's because they have to send off for the actual cash. Because the cash, or promissory notes is the only real, tangible type of money that we actually have. Everything else, in fact, 97% of the UK economy is digital. It's numbers printed on a screen via a keyboard. So it's only 3% money. And the sad part is that 97% that is digital is actually adding to the national debt. The cash is actually taking away from the national debt. But, as I do tend to rattle on a bit too much sometimes, so you are actually creating the money the banks pretend to lend you. So it's a scam from the word go, and the way we get around it is by using the get-out-of-debt-free template letters, and they become more and more sophisticated as time's gone on. But I think that's pretty much answered the question, maybe a little bit too much, but so I'll leave you to ask another.
No, it makes perfect sense to me, Mark, and I'm personally quite glad you just mentioned the promissory note, because a couple of us, well, basically on my behalf, I sent off a Freedom of Information request to Swansea Council about 2 weeks ago regarding, a potential liability order on council tax. Now, I'm not going to go into the 15 questions that were put forward, and they were answered. But the reason that you get sent bills and court orders from the council is quite simply, in their words, is that I have failed to embrace with the council, right? I've failed to embrace with the council. But one of the questions further down, Mark, there says, my friend, that there is no contract at all for council tax. So it's all done on acts and statutes, which, as you know, and I'm sure most people who are listening at the moment know, can only be enforced by your consent. Now, I've been sitting for a while waiting for it, but instead of being in shock and horror like I would have been probably 8 years ago, today I'm proud to say that I received a notice of liability through the courts in respect of this liability order from Swansea Council, who are now going to charge me £44.50 for outstanding and £70 court costs, total of £114.50. Now, the next step's going to be is, I think because it's going to be a slightly unusual payment, we'll give them a promissory note with a little bit of a tip, the administration on top of it. Say, I'm going to write my own promissory note out of about £150, send it back, and then that will be the end of it, based on the information that they actually divulged on the Freedom of Information. So this will be a good one. We'll see where they go from then. But again, who was it again? I forgot what judge it was that said when a promissory note is presented, it needs to be accepted as cash.
Lord Denning.
We're working on a lot of things down here. I've forgotten which judge that was. Now, it's Denning. Lord Denning,
yeah.
Said it. And we're going to do that, and we'll give them a little bit of a tip for any administrative nightmare that I've got. And well, with there not being a contract now for council tax, they've admitted it. I don't wish to embrace some council tax anymore. So the step will be taken as well, and we'll sort of put everything together by the group that myself, as a human being, will then withdraw my legal fiction from any further acts or statutes that are likely to take money away from me regarding council tax. So it's going to be interesting to see what they say.
Did you notice there, you said you actually got a liability order from a court?
Yeah.
You didn't?
No, I didn't.
You didn't get a liability order from a court?
They come from the council, they printed themselves.
Yeah, and the reason we know this is actually comes from down South Wales, actually. One of our members was using the Carl Lentz method, and he used it for I think it was NPower, going to apply for a warrant of entry for the prepayment meter. So he put his paperwork in the day before, and he turned up at court using the Carl Lentz method, and NPower never turned up. And that's because of when you're using the Carl Lentz method, you're going as a man, not as a person. Mm-hmm. And a corporation, NPower for instance, can't turn up because only a man can make a claim against another man. So our member was turning up and was expecting a man to come and his name to be NPower. Not a representative of NPower, but an actual man called NPower, because that's who was making the claim. And he never turned up, and that got thrown out. Now, he got so excited at this, he decided to use it for council tax. And here's where we found out absolute evidence, proof, that the courtroom itself is not the court and everything that goes off in there is fraudulent. He then, as I said, went to use it for council tax, and he did the car length method, I am man, and so forth. You have to read up in the forum if you want to understand it fully. It's a long thread, it's about 170 pages long, and there's some that try to take it astray, but it's worth reading through. And so he turned up as a man, and they basically just ignored him, and that's because the guy or woman acting as the clerk of the court is not the clerk of the court in Nottingham. It's 2 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon. They are acting in their private capacity. They are not acting as a court clerk of the court, and we know this because our member got a little bit upset and says, right, I'd like the magistrates' names. And of course, under CPR rules, there can never be a private court. So the magistrates must, under the rules of the court, identify themselves. Now, they didn't know what to do, so they asked the guy wearing the hat of clerk of the justice, even though he's acting in his private capacity, if they had to give their names. Now, if he was acting as a clerk of the justice, he had to reply, yes, you do, it's court procedure. However, he said, that's up to you, which means he wasn't actually a clerk of the court, he was just pretending. And if he had been, he would have told them they have to give the details. Now, because he didn't, we know that whole process is fraudulent and fake. And so I'm of the conclusion the only way to win in council tax hearings is for a group of you to go into the court, and as soon as the clerk of the court does anything wrong, and you've got to know what they are doing wrong, and that's pretty much everything, at that point you all need to stand up and go and arrest him, because he's impersonating a court official, which carries a 7-year mandatory sentence.
And would that be for malfeasance in public office, then?
No, it's for impersonating a court official.
Okay. Just one of the, just looking at the Freedom of Information request that went to Swansea Council here, is can you confirm if your council has or has had a court officer title or role? And the answer was yes.
So that's probably someone they just got that's maybe gets to court every now and again, but is sat in their office in the council and just rubber stamping everything.
That's right, and there was a document that was going around, and I've got it somewhere on Facebook, and it was leaked out from a magistrate's court back. I don't know if you saw it, but it actually says at the end that all queries regarding council tax go to the court, and the court deals with them, but it's absolutely mandatory for the court staff not to tell anybody who's querying the council tax that it is the local authority who has control over any orders through the court regarding council tax. So it is actually the council that controls and manipulates everything 110%.
Yep, absolutely. Now, I have many friends who are doing many different things dealing with council tax, but one, if you go on to YouTube and the SriLanKerC channel, you'll see there's about an hour and a half video where there's a friend of mine, whose face is all blurred out because that's the way they wanted it, and they talk about how they decoded a certain book, and they use certain passages from this book, sent it off for last year's council tax, and the council tax was written off. They never chased them again. Now they're working on a subject for everyone to use, but obviously it's not going to go out there straight away. It's got to be tested a few more times with a few more friends, and when we've evidence that it works every time, then we will hopefully be releasing it for the general population to use, and that should be the end of council tax for all those that are aware of the scam at any rate.
Yeah, well, Guy Taylor's got it right, and I know Guy, you've been on a few stop evictions with him, and we had Guy Taylor down in Port Talbot with us on Tuesday night at our Common Law Code of Wales meeting, and we had an awesome night. Guy always keeps saying, we're all pioneers in this, we're all looking for ways. When one of us gets through the door and starts to come out, we'll see thousands of other people coming over our shoulder. And, that's exactly what we're all trying to do. We're looking for remedies. seeking solutions and sitting all day behind a computer has its merits, but you've got to get into these guys' faces with the knowledge that you've learned. Having the knowledge and doing nothing, in my opinion, is it's a lack of power. It's a lack of insight.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Just going to make one further point about my own personal little challenge, which, to be honest with you, I'm thoroughly enjoying and really looking forward on the council tax. Where I was summoned to the magistrates' court that day was...
Well, you weren't summoned to the magistrates' court. Your person was apparently summoned because they issue the summonses as well. So even your person wasn't summoned, and it wasn't a court. That's what this is. Even though you're aware of it, it's so difficult to stop calling it a court.
Yeah.
But it isn't a court.
The point I was going to make is that it's not a court in that it never was going to be a legislative, or it's whatever it was. The building itself was actually a building that belongs to Swansea Council, and they rent out to the likes of Atos and other people on a daily rate to basically pretend to be a court. So the building itself wasn't a court, neither was the the requirement for any administration things that they were going to sort of any torture that were going to try and put thousands of people through. It's a scam. It was all a scam. Yeah.
Well, I've even been in court. I've been paying visits to courts. Sometimes they like me, sometimes they don't. Usually they don't. But on one I was in, it was about 3 years ago now. And again, this is another reason why I knew that the council tax was a total scam. Was under CPR rules, every case has to be heard on its own merit, which means every single council tax case has to be heard, and they have to put what they've said, what they've done, why they haven't done it, blah, blah, blah. Basically a case for every single court, every single case. But what they do is, I was there and they did 276 council tax summons type things in one go and said, yeah, and just rubber stamped the lot, totally breaking CPR rules. So from then on, I knew everything in there was fraudulent.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I can tell you what else is fraudulent. Looking through the 4 or 5 pieces of paper that I've got here, there's a nice little threat there that I've got 14 days to return this letter, completed a questionnaire, or I can be fined £500. Load of bollocks, because I know I don't have to embrace with the council on their own words, and that there is no contract.
Yeah.
So we're not even going to bother with that. The whole lot will be returned with a letter and a promissory note anyway. But no, certainly what you're saying about the Carl Lentz method, going into court as a human being, as a man, when that's out, you're right, mate, game is over. And I feel certainly, in the short time that I've been into common law and doing what I can to free myself and other people, I genuinely sense a massive change of mood and, a big air of optimism with a lot of people waking up. How do you feel about that?
Absolutely. I mean, for me, this journey started when I was born, but the real sort of awakening came probably 15 years ago. And when I was walking around trying to tell everyone what was going on, and don't get me wrong, by the time I think I had lost the plot myself, and I thought I'd gone mental, because I'm the only one walking. It's shortly after 9/11, and you see the videos that come out, and then the bumps they put out, and I was walking around with a top. 9/11 was an inside job, and I can see people looking at me, going, "Oh, he's crazy," wiggling the finger around the head and pointing at me. And way back then, early 2000, it was like, oh my God. But I knew it was so important that if I didn't get this information out, we could all be dead. And it's as time's gone by, it seems that we could have been dead if everybody else hadn't sort of realised that something was dodgy as well. But then, I would say it was probably not until about 2010 where groups actually started to form. And the first time I went to a group where you're actually around other men and women that, if not know, are aware there's something going on, and you start talking, and they start talking back, it's like a breath of fresh air. From being in a room where no one has a clue, and if you say anything, you're instantly looked at as a lunatic, to being in a room where they all get what's going on. It is like, I finally landed back home.
back into the land of the same. You know, I had the same thing, you know, a social club that I go to every now and again. 4 or 5 years back, I said, you know, the TV license, you don't have to pay it. You know, tin foil hat guy, just leave him to carry on himself. One guy tried it, never had any problems with it. Then 2 guys tried it, then 6 guys tried it, and the last count, out of that social club, Mark, there's approximately 20 people, family and friends, who now no longer pay the TV license. So, you know, if I had wandered down there once the show's going, it wouldn't be, oh, here comes that idiot from the corner there with the funny theories. Yeah, it's like, Kev, how are you doing? What are you rocking now? What else can we do? And, you know, it is a breath of fresh air when, you know, because it's difficult sometimes to get the penny to drop. Yeah. So, right, I think we've got a little station break, Mark, which takes about a minute, and when we come back, I'll ask Darren Latham, who's the head sheriff of the Common Law Code of Wales, who's been watching your work, mate, for a long time, and we'll get Darren to have a chat with you and ask a couple of questions. So, back in about 1 minute.
Yeah, no problem.
You're listening to the Freedom Talk Radio Network and the Lead Entertainment Television Group. We have voices from around the world. We have live shows every day. Visit the station's website and register to comment and share stories. Why don't you be a writer for the network at www.freedomtalkradio.co.uk. We are looking for new show hosts, guests and volunteers. If you could help, please email freedomtalkradio2013@gmail.com or add us to your Skype Freedom Talk Radio 1. Andy and Bill wishes you a great day.
Okay, and that was the little station break. You're listening to the Common Law Code of Wales radio show on Freedom Talk Radio. Darren, you're listening in the background there, mate. I know you're familiar with Mark's work. Do you want to come in and have a chat with him?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Kev. And welcome, Mark. And,
Hi.
I've got to thank you on behalf of thousands, if not close to millions, I would imagine, on the work you're doing. I just wondered if we could just back up a little bit. We've spoken about promissory notes and the fraudulent debt safe system, which we all are born into. But could you elaborate for the listeners exactly how this system is implicated on us through fraud straight off the bat from when we first born, and how in actual fact this system is already prepaid, if you like, and then just go into the method of how we can lawfully discharge the alleged debts against this bond.
Well, it's not strict. I know most people most think that, but it's not actually from when we're first born. It's from when we are first informed against, and that's when they apply for the birth certificate. At that point, there is a trust formed on your behalf, and it's worth a lot of money. The last I heard, which was last year, and I'm not 100% on this, but I heard that the banks buy the bonds for £6 million each, and they know they're going to get way more times back as time goes on, because they work. This price has increased as times pass by, because our wages have gone up, if you want to call them that, going up. But when you play that against inflation and tax and all that, they're going down rather than up. But they know that we're going to, in general, we're going to earn so much money over a lifetime that those bonds are worth that amount of money. The $6 million is just a drop in the ocean to what they're really worth. And those bonds go back right to, as far as I can remember, the Sescovy Act of 1666, where they introduced an act which said you have 7 years to fill in the correct paperwork to prove you are a live, living being, or if you don't, you'll be classed as lost to the sea. Now, what's strange there is if you go missing, you have to be missing for 7 years before you're classed as dead. And if you haven't filled in the paperwork, you're classed as a dead legal fiction. This is why any government-issued paperwork always comes in black, death, and your name will be in capital letters. Well, if you look around any graveyard, you'll see all the dead beings' names are in capital letters. And and this is a scam that's put onto it. In fact, it gets even deeper. I'm not going to go too deep into this particular part. I'm just going to briefly mention this, but on the birth certificate and the marriage certificates and things like that, if you actually read them, it says that if you're getting married, that you're marrying a spouse, I think it is. A spouse, something along the line. And a spouse actually means a childless woman that's incapable of having children. So right from the very beginning, when you get married or birth certificate, it's all an utter scam. So it's so complex. It's almost. I bet they can't figure out how we figured it out. But the bond, about 4 years ago now, there's me and a few of my mates working on tracking the bonds down. And if you go, like I say, 3 or 4 years back in the forum, you will find how we actually did manage to. I actually tracked my bond down and I posted it in the forum. And then I told everybody how to do it. And several did. But what they did is they realised that we'd been clever and we'd tracked the bonds down. So what they then did is they then put them into all the single bonds into one big bond. So now if you do the same methods we used back then, you can track it down to a certain point and you hit the wall of the big bond, which you can't get through, but that's where your bond is behind. And then bonds are sold and traded on the stock market all day, every day, and they increase in value all the time. And then those bonds, because you didn't fill the paperwork in before you were 7, oh, by the way, they never told us you had to fill any paperwork in. They just brought in the SESCA-V Act and never told anybody about the paperwork they had to fill in, so what chance did we have? The government then claims it all as, because you're dead.
That's right. You couldn't make this stuff up, Mark, really, could you?
No. Even though I know it, I still think this is just, it's absolute genius if it wasn't so evil.
Yes, and evil it certainly is. Now, Mark, as these bonds or funds are put into place, isn't there a method that the people are using successfully and one that is great detail on your site, where we can discharge our debts by accepting for value and discharging against our not birth certificate number, our national insurance number.
Yes.
Which gives access. Can you go into that for the listeners?
Well, I can't. Right, you can find all this out yourself. It's a bit tricky reading. There are 2 sections of the Bills of Exchange Act I suggest everyone looks up. One's 43 and the other one's in the 80s, but the actual number escapes me at the moment. But under the Bills of Exchange Act, and of course Lord Denning quite clearly said many, many times that a promissory note is to be treated as cash. So, under the Bills of Exchange, I mean, I think I was probably one of the first that actually, in the UK at any rate, tried paying my gas, electric and everything with a promissory note, and it kept them in, sent them in circles for 6 to 8 months until they finally realised that what I'd done. But under the Bills of Exchange Act, you send them off a promissory note. Under the Bills of Exchange Act, they must accept it as payment. Now, if they don't, if they reject it as payment, well, you've offered them payment and they've rejected it, they have then discharged the debt. However, of course, all they do is to just totally ignore the law or the Bills of Exchange Act, even though it states it, and Lord Denning has stated it, that it absolutely is the way it is. They will just ignore you, and of course, if it goes to court, the judges that you will get will be Freemason judges who are going to back the banks or whoever's chasing you every single time.
Yes, absolutely. It's certainly a system devised in order to protect themselves within this huge fraud.
Yeah.
I mean, the debt safe system, as it is, as you say, a completely evil cesspit. I mean, as you quite rightly pointed out, there is no value in the money that they use to perpetuate this fraud, and there's certainly no value in the system except the people who are tangled up within that system. But we are breaking free of it, Mark, and I believe that the system itself is certainly crumbling before our eyes. it should only be a matter of time. How long do you think, Mark, before this system comes to its knees? Do you think it's on its way, or what?
Next year.
Yes, I was thinking around the same kind of date myself.
Earlier this summer, I was on a show and I actually said then I give it 18 months, and I still give it about 18 months. I give it to maybe Christmas next year at a push, maybe a couple of months after, and I really hope it's not, and I don't think it will be, but it will definitely be next year. And I mean, I don't want to say like this is preordained or anything like that, but do you know what next year is in the year of the Chinese calendar?
Well, I know that because Guy Taylor told us on Tuesday it's the year of the sheep, and is this when sheep wake up? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly the way I see it as well. All those that are still, we're classed as sleeping. I class them as zombies, and they really do look like zombies sometimes. But yeah, I believe that they will wake up, and I think we're on the tipping point right now. The word is spreading like wildfire all over the internet, and even word of mouth down the pub. It's spreading everywhere. And whereas I used to get laughed at and ridiculed for what I was saying, then very same guys and girls now come and ask me for advice.
Yeah, well, in the same sort of line, the same here, mate. But, nobody's laughing at me anymore. They're all looking for solutions to, improve their lives, get out of debt, and enjoy the peace that we should be entitled to as God's people. Yeah. I agree with what you say. Sometimes, I always say to myself, the night is always darkest before the dawn. And I think 2015 is going to be your year. The whole rotten, corrupt, fraudulent system is literally hanging on by threads, Mark, yeah? And the good thing is we've been pumping the message out. People are waking up in droves, literally every minute of the day. The banking system is, basically bankrupt. It's fraudulent. It can't be sustained anymore, not even with the madness and insanity of what they are doing. And, we have got alternatives now. We've got Rogers, TAMS, the lawful bank, and my personal preference is the Bradbury pound. So we have alternatives for them. And, the likes of, 20 people down the club where I go to and myself not paying TV license, the little 6 people in the common law court, the newcomers who don't pay TV license anymore, this is going to hit them in their pocket. They've lost control. The whole rotten system is completely exposed for what it is. It's a scam. And everything that is a scam, I keep using the example of that we are like little children, and you remember that cartoon, The Emperor's Not Got, The Emperor Has No Clothes.
Yes.
Everybody was going around because the Emperor said, or David Cameron said, look at me, look, we're adorned in all this wealth and gold and glamour. People believed the lie. The guy was naked until a kid came along and said, what the hell are you all talking about? The guy's naked, there's nothing there. It's a scam. It's exactly the same system. And that, I think, is where the point we're at. So it's quite easy to get despondent when, you're playing their system and they're lying, they're coming back to you. But, even their own acts and statutes can't be held up any longer. No. And, the case that I fight, and fair play to the guys from the Common Law Court of Wales who set it up before I even met them to fight the Justice for Linda Lewis campaign in South Wales. I get a lot of information from social workers who hate what's happening. Police can see what's happening. Judges are beginning to panic because they are holding up a system. They're trying to hold up a dam that's going to collapse right on top of their head, and it's going to happen very, very soon. And, of course, human nature is they can be as smug as hell as they want for years, and they have been. They're hiding behind a system that has been there to protect them, but when that protection is gone and they stand as a human being, as you say, as a man, and our wrath is coming, these guys have got a hell of a lot to worry about.
Very much so. And where you talked about the Bradbury pound and the lawful bank, I don't even know if we're going to get to the point of having any money of any sorts in the future. In fact, I know that we're going to have not a cash society, we're going to have a moneyless society. And I don't mean all credit cards or anything. I believe the actual use of money is coming to the end, because wherever money's involved, corruption will be involved, greed will be involved, and we'll end up right back in the same poo that we are just about to climb out from.
That's an interesting point, mate. So how are we going to trade then? How are we going to basically live our lives in peace and contentment, with plenty of food on the table, without money?
So you want my version of what I believe, I think's coming?
Yeah, go on. That's
okay. You can take it or leave it. It's just the way I see things. But I honestly believe that we can get to a point where we only need to do 1 day's work a week. 1 day. As long as everybody does 1 day work a week, we will live happy for the rest of our lives. And you might be wondering, how can that possibly be? Well, if you think about it, we're not going to need any of the banking staff. We're not going to need hardly any retail staff. We're not going to need hardly any of the jobs we have at the moment. So if you're going on a farm 1 day a week, helping produce food, that's your week's work done. You get food for the whole week. And we'll need some distribution. So where we've got, like, I'm just using a term of like supermarkets at the moment, but they won't be that. They'll be where we go to get what we need. But that'll need to be transported there. So we're going to need at least 7 men or women to do that transport job of just that one lorry. And I would suspect we could probably have 14, so 2 per day, learning. Of course, we won't need licenses then. They'll have to be taught to drive these vehicles. And then 1 day a week, they're driving distribution around. And sometimes it takes, although it shouldn't do with the technologies we've got, sometimes it might take longer than a day to get some places. So another driver will meet you somewhere and take over your job, and you're off back home, and that's your day's work finished. And once we all chip in and just do our 1 day a week, we will all get whatever we want. We won't need this. I mean, we've got to get out of this, oh, I want the latest iPhone, I want the latest TV, I want the latest... We can all have all that if we pull together, because at the moment the system is set up that you stand on everybody else's head to get to the top, so you've got the most money and you can get everything you want. Well, if we just all shared it all, we could all be equally happy. And I also believe we'll also become vegetarian.
Yeah, you've got a lot of good points there, Mark, absolutely. Just a quick reminder, I think, Darren, you've got a couple of emails, questions that's come through, mate. I'll let you straight back in. Anybody who wants to email in any questions at all to Mark, Darren, or myself, the email address is the Common Law Code of Wales at outlook.com, or there's a phone number you can get through to us on, which is 001 347 677 0812. Darren, I'll hand over to you now.
Thank you, Kev. Yeah, we've got a few questions there. I'll get to them when they mount up, or they're coming in. Just to touch on what Mark was saying there, Mark, are you familiar with Ubuntu and Michael Tillinger's work at all in regards to this?
He says very similar things.
Yes, I agree. And that has to be the only honest way forward. I mean, the battle between private money and people printing the money for themselves interest-free has been a balance of power over the centuries, as you're well aware, Mark. But I believe if we can bring in systems like Michael Tillinger and yourself are talking about there, in combination with a debt-free system, along with all the suppressed free energies and whatnot, what we are talking about is very much... yes, it's a very feasible concept, one which I think is the only free method of progress. What do you think, Mark? Well,
as far as free energy is concerned, that stretches back to the beginning of the 1900s when Tesla created the Waldendorf Tower, which was going to provide free energy. And I think it was J.P. Morgan said, how can I put a meter on that? And when he realised he couldn't, he destroyed it. In the 80s, we had Stanley Meyer, who had created a hydrogen fuel cell which would run a car on water, and the petrochemical companies banded, and bear in mind this is the 80s, banded together and offered him $1 billion to shut up about it. He refused, and so they poisoned him and killed him. I had my car running 50% on water, 50% on fuel. That was a hydrogen fuel cell, which you still have fuel as well, but it pumps hydroxy, or sometimes known as brown gas, into the engine at the same time, and it burns the fuel quicker, faster, with more power. You find that it decokes the engine, it runs cooler, and it gives you more horsepower. And that carried on until the car got smashed up, and I couldn't afford to replace it, so I then sold myself onto someone else for them to use.
Well, you know, free energy mark can be introduced literally within 48 hours. It's the fact that the elites won't let us have it because they want to screw us for as much money as they can.
A slave that has the ability to make choices because they have money is a slave that's going to cause trouble. So if you keep the slaves chasing the money, then you keep them under control.
Well, it's like the donkey and the carrot, isn't it? The money and the human being, or the slave, whatever you want to call it. You know, as far as powering cars goes, mate, I don't know if you saw something that was going around on Facebook not so long ago, but somebody's apparently invented an engine for a car that can run entirely on salt water and can sort of go from 0 to 60 in about 6 seconds. I don't know if you saw that.
It was 2.8 seconds, yeah, I did see it. But previous to that, and I'm going back probably 4 or 5 years now, there was a company in Okinawa, Japan, that had created, it was a small car, almost like a smart car, but a bit boxy, and they could run the car at 60 miles an hour for 1 hour on 1 litre of either water, seawater, tea, any particular liquid, and that would go up to 60 miles an hour. And of course, I mean, I posted it, and if you search on YouTube, you can probably still find the clip about it. And that was 4 years ago. And has anyone heard any more? No, because then, of course, the petrochemical companies lose everything, and they lose the power. For instance, in America, they lose buying off all the politicians over there. Not that there's any difference over here. The only difference over here is our politicians are bought off by the pharmaceutical companies and the banks.
Yeah, and of course what happens when this comes out is the likes of Mr. Rothschild, he loses his trillions and trillions. Queenie lives at breath, she's worth nothing at all. She'll be looking for a council house somewhere in North London. And, you know, the wealth that they've got, mate, that's been based on lies, slavery, fraud and deceit doesn't exist anymore.
She's not having a council house, she's having a jail cell.
That's more like it. And I would like to see a guillotine after a lawful trial on it as well.
Well, I don't actually go down, I don't like that particular route of killing them, because they put us through all our lives of misery, and for them to get a quick and it's over, that just seems so unfair to me. They should be, when I was talking about 1 day a week, I was talking about everyone else, apart from those that's been using this system against us. They can do 7 days a week, going around apologising till they die to every member that there is on this earth, not just this country.
I'm picking up litter from the side of the street, and well, we won't need food banks and things then, but we can certainly use them to get some weeds out of parks and stuff like that. So. Well,
did you see that recently, where Tesco are pouring bleach on the food that they're about to throw away into the bin, so that homeless and hungry men and women can't go after it and eat it?
Well, I saw it, you know, and I've got to be honest, I've been at war with Tesco's for about 4 years. Again, when they gave up sponsoring Macmillan Cancer Relief and started pumping all their money into some LGBT system that they've got. And, okay, we all know cancer, you know, can be cured in many ways by, you know, different natural medicines, etc. But, I mean, that really did get my goat up, and I haven't shopped in Tesco's now for, well, about 4 years. But I take a great deal of pleasure, Mark, in seeing their profits actually tumbling. Because there's 2 points to make about it. I think people are getting wise to what they're selling. I think, personally, that they knew that they were selling as horse meat and they didn't expect to get sorted out. But when you get the likes of Aldi's and Lidl's coming in and literally undercutting their prices by 50%, people are beginning to understand that, hold on a second, those bastards have been ripping us off for such a long time. We're not going to go back in there as a principle now anyway, no matter what they do. So it kind of gives me a little smug grin on my face when I see Tesco's having such a drop in profit, and the shares for the directors coming, you know, literally falling through the floor at the moment. You're not going to like what I'm about to tell you then. Go on, I'll listen to anything. I keep my mind open.
Tesco is being deliberately destroyed.
Okay, good man.
And this is so the likes of Walmart, Asda can take it over. The idea is to have one supermarket chain, and then that's the only place you can get the food from, so they can do what they like with it. And I say this because it was recently posted where a manager in a Tesco store was taking food out of a box which was put there for the food bank and putting it back on the shelf. And people had seen him do this. And there's so much bad press coming out about that. I'm not saying they're a good company anyway, but I am saying I think they're deliberately being engineered to crash.
I think once you realise that, and I can well understand where you're coming from, and to be honest with you, I actually believe what you're saying, when you can understand that even that the whole economy, the fabric, the infrastructure of Great Britain, everything is being spoiled and brought down by design. This is not an accident what's going on at the moment. This is all being done. It's a grand design of the elites, these sick retards that we've got, in the politicians, etc. Pedophilia is another thing. This is all coming out and it's being done by design. And the whole idea is to crash the economy, genocide of the people of this country. No food, no matter. We dictate the terms. We tell you what to eat. It's GMO. You eat it. You pay exorbitant price for it. The corporation known as UK PLC will triumph. That's what they think, mate. But actually, I think they're very, very wrong.
Absolutely, that is the plan, and they've already lost. This is all we're going through at the moment is the dying throngs of the end of the Roman cult that has run this country since before any of us can even remember.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, we'll go back to Darren. I think there's a couple of email questions Darren might want to ask. So, Darren, over to you, mate.
Yeah, you don't have a phone number there, Kev, as well, just so people got an opportunity to phone in here for the last hour.
I'll do it again.
If you pick that out then.
Two ways of contacting us, Dar. I'll do it before you go on, mate. Phone number is 001 347 677 0812, or you can email us in at the Common Law Code of Wales at outlook.com. So off you go, Dar.
So, Mark, is somebody here by the name of James? You'd like to know the birth certificate. Is it true that the number in the right or left-hand corner, if you were to type it into a certain website, you can find out actually who owns you?
There's rumours of several things like that, and to be honest, I've not looked into any of them type of things because I'm not interested in my bond. My bond, even though it's mine and I should have the full benefit of it, they've stolen it from me, and because I'm classed as dead, there's no way of me getting it back. So I've not really bothered looking into it. I think another reason that we've finally been allowed to know about this sort of thing is because they want us chasing our bond now rather than trying to defeat the evilness that is the UK Parliament, the police, the courts, the energy, I won't say providers because they don't provide it, it's ours. It was put here by whoever you believe has put it here for us to use. Now, just because they allegedly pay someone to go and dig it up doesn't mean it's theirs. It was there anyway, it was there for us, and it is ours. And it is absolutely immoral for us to have to... Old men and women dying, and even younger ones these days, dying because they can't afford to put the heating on, is an utter disgrace. And when it's looked at in the future, they will wonder what the hell we were doing, allowing our other brothers and sisters to die when it was perfectly feasible for them to turn their gas and electric heating on and live. But no, because there was no money, no Rothschild's currency floating around, they died for it.
2 points to make of what you've said there, Mark. There is a website that I can't remember out there, mate, and if you actually type in your national insurance number, it'll tell you exactly what your bond's worth. Now, my bond
I had heard of that one, but this one with the 3 digits in the corner I've not heard of. That's why I thought there may be something else out, so I thought I'd just sort of...
Okay, well, I've forgotten what the website is, but, the point to make is I think I was worth about £780,000 through my national insurance number on my bond. But you're right in what you say. We don't go chasing this. We don't look it back, because when the rotten financial system collapses anyway, let's not forget our bond goes with it, because that's all based on fraud, fresh air and lies anyway. It's all a big deception. It's only there as long as the current financial system is in operation. When that goes, we don't need it. You know, we have freedom, we have food, we have electricity, we have free gas. You know, everything we need is provided for us without a cost to ourselves. Slavery is over. Now, Mark, I'm just going to come back very quickly to what you said, and you're right, it's an absolute disgrace that people are dying because of cold, you know, and having to decide whether to stick the heater on for half an hour or buy an extra tin of beans.
Yeah.
We're going to come back, and I think Darren was going to touch on this, but I'll mention it anyway. Is your gas bill and electricity bill not actually paid for before you get the invoice?
Yes, you don't get any. It comes back to the A for V, but at the bottom of the paperwork we send you, it's a credit note at the bottom, not a debit note, a credit note. And they're doing the best, and they will die trying to stop us utilising that credit note. And as we're all aware, credit is it's already paid. If you have credit, then you're in the plus. You're not in the negative. So again, that comes back to the statutes and acts. They must supply you with a way. If they send you something that you have to pay for, they must also provide the method of payment. But we've seen it, and we've gone, oh yeah, right, we fill that in. I don't know whether they started with, we'll send them the payment and see what happens, because we're going to take the money out of their bond anyway, because they automatically take it out of your bond. And then when they started sending these things out and they started arriving back, these credit slips with money as well, they were going, woohoo, double payment!
Well, that's the whole thing, they're getting paid. And you've got your poor pensioner sitting on 60 quid a week who's got a gas bill coming in for £100 and says, well, I'm going to have to freeze for the next month because I've got no food. If we could educate them to realise that that bill is actually paid anyway, we could cut debts down by about 45,000 to 50,000 every winter.
Well, now that we've touched on this, here's something that's very interesting, and I hope all your listeners pay attention to this. If you decide, whatever method you decide to try and challenge the gas or electric on is absolutely your choice. There's many methods out there, and I'll give you one thing that is the utmost important thing for you to remember. Whatever reason they decide we're going to ignore you for whatever, we're going to court to get a warrant of entry to fit a prepayment meter. There is only one reason, no other reason, but one reason they can apply for a warrant of entry. That is for safety reasons. Not because you haven't paid your bill. The only reason they can go to a court and ask them to issue a warrant of entry is because there's some safety issues. So there's ways you can deal with that, or you can turn up. If you know what you're talking about, you can turn up and tell them that you know, and if they issue it, they'd be breaking the law themselves, and some have done this, and the magistrates have backed out from issuing them. You can, if you don't feel strong enough, then get someone to go for you. Do it in writing. I would always recommend going yourself, because they're going to lie in court. This is another thing, that the warrant officer that is applying for this warrant of entry has to swear under oath that he's telling the truth. And if he's saying they haven't paid their bill, well, he is telling the truth. The only thing is, that's not a reason to get a warrant of entry.
Okay, absolutely. This is brilliant stuff, Mark. We've got a station jingle coming up for about a minute, mate, so we'll be back in about 60 seconds, and we'll let Darren come back in then to ask a few more questions. Just come through by email or any question Darren's got, so back in about 60 seconds.
Okay.
You're listening to Freedom Talk Radio. We are dedicated to providing free access to our internet network. If you would like to get involved, contact us in any of the following ways. Go to freedomtalkradio.net/contact-us to contact us in writing. That's freedomtalkradio.net/contact-us. Or you can email us at freedomtalkradio2013@gmail.com or info@freedomtalkradio.net. Be sure to tune in for some of our exciting shows. On Monday, tune in from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. for The Truth Police with Andy Peacher and Tim Spearman. On Tuesdays, be sure to check out Tim Clark's End Time Matrix News from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Then stay tuned for Andy Peacher's Musicians and Bands show from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. On Thursdays, from 2 to 4 p.m., it's Andy Peacher's Families Reunited show. Friday is a busy day on freedomtalkradio.net as we get the weekend off to a great start. From 12 noon to 2 p.m., once again, it's Tim Clark's End Times Matrix News. From 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., it's the Cosmic College with Sasha and Janet Lesson. Heat up your weekends on Saturdays from 12 noon to 2 p.m. with the Knights of Liberty show with Andy Peacher and Tim Spearman. And then, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., Bill Zam is surrounded by idiots. So be sure to tune in to all of our shows on freedomtalkradio.net.
Okay, and I think we're back. You're listening to the Common Law Court of Wales radio show on Freedom Talk Radio. Darren, I'll put you back in the hot seat again, mate, to put some questions to Mark.
Yes, just had an email from Softly June, I think I pronounced that correctly. I'm listening live to the show tonight and I'm feeling inspired to ask your opinion. I've paid several bailiffs for outstanding magistrates' court fines. A long story short, can I claim back the bailiff fees I've already paid, dating back to 2011? Also, am I...
Wait, if I can just answer that bit first, because it's probably going to be a second question or part of it. Right, bailiff fees. Now, this is a very interesting subject. Whenever a bailiff comes to your house, I'm sure you're aware that he never shows the warrant. The reason for him not showing the warrant, well, apart from the fact it will be fake, is that the warrant will have the original fine or amount on it and not the bailiff fees. So when he comes chasing you for his £300 bailiff fees on top of the original amount, he can't show you the warrant because it won't say the full amount of his fees plus the original amount on it, and so he would be committing fraud. So he doesn't show it you. So what he would have to do is once you get rid of him and refuse to pay him, if he wants to chase you for the fees, he would then have to take you to court. And he's not going to do that because, well, as I'm sure most are aware, anything that comes out of the court is fraudulent anyway. So that's the answer to that part, I think.
Okay, nice one. Also, she goes on to say, this is not he, excuse me. Also, am I obligated to pay the bailiff fees for letters sent and attendance to my property? And that's it, I think, man.
Okay. Well, if I send you a letter saying that I'm coming to collect £500 for this letter, and you better be there to pay it, I hope you're there to pay it, because that letter that I sent you has as much relevance as any letter sent by them.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that wraps that one up. We have another question here from Tommy. Private banks killing technology, Mark. You touched on it earlier. Could you go in more into that for Tom?
Can you just say that again? I missed the first.
It's a private banking system or killing and suppressing technologies.
Right, yeah. This is probably one of the most trickiest things for everyone to get their heads round. The reason being is we're thinking that everything is separate. We're thinking that, like, I'll give you the easiest example. You've got Empower, you've got Scottish and Southern, you've got a whole plethora of different companies. However, British Gas is still in charge of every single one of them. Every single one. And who's in charge of British Gas? A company called Capita. So Capita is in charge of every single company. And all they did when they privatised, gave away our gas and electric, all they did there was give it to one company again, pretend that they were separate companies. Because, how did they sell it to us? Oh, there'll be competition, so the prices will be cheaper. It's just like going to Currys or Dixon's. They're owned by the same company, but one might be a little bit cheaper, or there'll be no difference. But you have the illusion of choice. It's like Parliament. Oh, should I vote Conservative or Labour or Lib Dem or UKIP, the latest controlled opposition? I don't know which I'll vote for. In fact, I won't vote because I'm not on the register. But you're given the choice. Therefore, your subconscious thinks, well, this must be fair then, because I'm at least making the choice, when at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who you vote for, the same guys, the same agenda carries on. There is no choice, as was proved in the Scottish elections, where they all voted, well, the majority voted to be out of the UK, but they just fixed the elections, and it was even caught on films when fixing the election. What happened? Did we have a new vote? No. We got the vote we wanted, so we'll just brush that aside now. You had the choice, and you, even though you voted for it out, you're still in because we fixed the vote. I think that pretty much sums up the whole situation.
Everything's a scam. That's really what it comes down to, Mark.
Absolutely.
You know, you just touched on one of the questions that we had in there by email about bailiffs, etc. Now, we're doing a lot as a people and as a fight back movement through Response. I'm a member of Response South Wales, so, you know, quite a few, well, most of the guys from the Common Law group of Wales are. Wesley Ahmed's been doing some fantastic stuff in stopping bailiffs coming in and, you know, repossessing houses or, you know, removing furniture, etc. I know you're involved in this, Mark, and I believe you were down with Guy at Mr. Ebert's last week. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
How do you feel things are going now? Are people waking up to realising that we're being scammed? You know, we all know that mortgages are probably the biggest fraud that's ever been forced on the people of this country, is the mortgage scam.
Yeah.
You know, you're full of enthusiasm that you can see people coming together. Bailiffs are going away with, you know, their tails between their legs, where before, you know, a couple of years back, they would have just gone in, turfed people out onto the streets and removed whatever they wanted. Well, they don't have the authority, and we know it. How are you finding out?
Well, the thing is, years ago, it didn't happen quite as much. It may have happened perhaps once or twice or three times in a bailiff's yearly repossession, but that was because nobody knew the laws back then, and generally when they turned up a property, those that had been living there had left because they thought they had no choice. But then we started to read the rules and regulations and found out actually they can't do this. So then, as they had no other way of enforcing it, they just became more violent, which is what they're doing now. They're becoming more violent. And those, where we talked about Mr. Ebert's place, those alleged High Court enforcement officers were simply a private company of alleged enforcement. They weren't the High Court enforcement officers at all. In fact, a little bit of research onto their actual company proves they were just a private company, basically a private bailiffs company who have called themselves Share Group, standing for Sheriff's Group, just to try and confuse you into thinking they must be real, because look, it says Sheriff on them. Total scam, everything.
I read somewhere, mate, that the position or the title of Sheriff has been abolished. Is that not correct?
I've heard that as well, but at the same time, I do know that here in Nottingham, we're, well, not quite in Nottingham, just on the outskirts, and my MP is Ken Clark, the paedophile.
Yeah.
But in Nottingham, we've as I'm sure history tells you, we've had a sheriff for a long time, and way back then, he used to be a bad guy. Then they were turned into a proper sheriff who was actually supposedly a good guy, and we've got one now that is basically, it's more of an ornament to them than anything else, although they do know they have certain powers, but are very, very reluctant to ever act on them because it would be going against everything they do.
Yeah, going back to Nottingham, mate, we've got the same, well, everybody who's probably listening to this show, every council that we know, local authority, and I don't know why they call themselves authorities because I didn't give them any authority over me whatsoever. So we'll stick with them council. Every council we've got now is a corporation, okay?
Yep.
People don't realise that. Everything is corporate. Everybody's corporate. Your MP's not an MP. He's a director of Great Britain PLC. Down in South Wales, where I live, probably one of the worst and most corrupt council is Leithcourt Talbot, where you've got the head of legal services there, a guy called David Michael, who's been caught out committing fraud, perjury, malfeasance in public office so many times that we can't get on him yet, but we certainly will be looking at it in the year of the sheeple next year in 2015. I know you're working quite closely with a guy who I've got a hell of a lot of admiration up in Nottingham there called Mickey Summers.
Yeah.
we did speak before that it's the same with, the case that I represent here, the Justice for Linda Lewis campaign, is that, I've got to keep my mouth shut on a lot of things because we don't want to tip off the baddies and the paedophiles and the child abusers who are responsible for Linda's and their family's misery over the years. But without going too far, Mark, just give us, an update on what's going on with Mickey, how you're helping him out, and most importantly, what sort of progress you're getting, because I know the paedophiles in Nottingham Council, they're having a hell of a time, and, they quite rightly are beginning to feel the force and the fear that we're inflicting on them.
Well, yeah, they've managed to ban at least 10 of my videos so far in the UK. So I put a video out explaining how you could still watch them in the UK, even though they were banned in the UK simply by using a proxy server, or the Tor browser is a very good one. And when I put that video out, I actually put the 2 links, because at that point they'd only blocked 2 of my videos. And YouTube had notified me they'd blocked these 2. But I put the 2 links in my description. And then YouTube went in and took the links out without mentioning it to me, and then blocked a further 8 of my videos without even notifying me. It was only when I actually went through my videos and I noticed I'd got X amount of videos. And then when I looked on SriLanKerC's site, he'd got like 10 more. So I started searching through them and found which ones were blocked. So I put a list of them on Get Out of Debt Free, and they sort of blocked them as well now. However, I've put the actual links to each video underneath the video itself now, so you can just copy that video and put it into either a Tor browser or just search for a proxy server, and you'll get a list of a load of proxy servers. Click on one of the proxy servers, put your link into the proxy server, and you'll be able to view the video in the UK. That's thanks to the leader of the City Council and the CEO of the City Council. Now, on its own, the fact that there's a CEO, you only have a CEO of a corporation.
Exactly.
Many just don't see it.
Yeah, but, exactly. Chief executive or executive operating officers or whatever, they're parts of corporations. They're money-making concerns, and that's what your councils are.
Absolutely. Well, before I slip off, because you did ask about Mickey, he's got something on at the moment, which is, I'm not going to mention in any way, shape or form, but let's just say, keep your eyes peeled, because there's going to be some big movement coming, very big movement coming. And, that's probably all I want to say about that, because it's like an ongoing thing that we don't want to tip the naughty child rapists off about it, do we?
Well, I could say exactly the same, and I'm going to say exactly the same. Keep your eyes focused on the Justice for Linda Lewis campaign in the first couple of months next year, because the shit's really going to hit the fan. And, we're talking about corporations there. It's not corporations that's actually doing this, Mark. It's actually individuals in corporations who wear the council's hat.
Yeah, absolutely.
The way to get back at these bastards is not to attack a council, i.e. Nottingham Council or Neath Talbot Council, is to attack the individuals in there who put a hat on to represent that corporation at 9 o'clock in the morning and take it off at 5 o'clock in the evening, and actually personally attack them for the crimes that they have committed on behalf of the corporation against the people of that local authority or council area that they are paid to represent and serve.
Absolutely, totally agree.
That's the way to do it, mate, is to actually single these people out, because, we've got the same problem down here with the Welsh Assembly government, endemically corrupt, rotten to the core. But what is the Welsh Assembly government? It can't speak for itself. It's a big overpaid building down in Cardiff Bay. It's the corruptors inside it that we need to get the focus on. And, I think we've picked up on that we need to expose these people, these men, these individuals for exactly what they are and what they're doing when they allegedly, as public servants, should be representing you and not doing so, and are basically shafting you on a daily basis.
Well, coming back to the divide and conquer type thing, up here we have the City Council, we have the County Council, we have the Borough Council, we have the Parish Council. So that's 4 separate councils, you'd think, wouldn't you? Except it's not. It absolutely is not. It's 4 councils so they can say, oh, it wasn't us, go and see them. And they say, it wasn't us, go and see them. That's just so they can keep you moving around in a circle chasing your tail. It's one council at the end of the day, and they're all corrupt.
Well, the whole system is basically meted against us, isn't it? You know, they've got a system that's set in place that is there to wear you down, yeah? Absolutely, completely and utterly wear you down. And to be honest, most people give up after a while because they're not getting anywhere. They're being, you know, sent around the houses, dragged from pillar to post, and it's the same people that are pulling the strings behind the scenes who are, you know, denying justice, won't get people give fair answers. And in the end, most people say, I've had a tipful of this, I'm not wasting my life on this, I quit. And that's what the system's is geared up to do. So, you know, the likes of Linda Lewis, who's been going for 18 years, and, you know the work that Mickey Summers is doing, all I can say is, you know, hats off to them, and we're going to keep going. I know you will keep going until we get the justice that everybody deserves.
Absolutely. And as anyone that's met me knows, I'm just a dead straight, I'm me. What you see is what you get. And when I first started, I used to get accused of, as we were speaking before the show, I used to get accused of having a house in the Bahamas and all that sort of thing. And yet, where I had to go meet somebody recently, and the fact I had to get the bus there maybe sort of suggested I wasn't this Bahamas guy that they were. I'd love to have a place in the Bahamas, don't get me wrong. In fact, I'd be there now because I've got a feeling it's damn sight warmer than here. But that's just what happens. When you start pushing the right buttons, the trolls get attracted to you. In fact, they're sent after you to discredit you every way you can. And there's even ones, and I'm sure your listeners are as aware as I am, there's certain high-profile ones out there which are total fake. I'm not going to name them because that would be, it's not my style, it's down for everyone to make their own decision. I know what my feelings are, but that's just me, and I wouldn't want to push that onto anyone.
Yeah, well, the thing is, when you get the trolls coming after you, you know you're on the right path. You know, you only get flack and things when you're over the target. Yeah. And, you know, I've had it, a lot of us have had it, and you've had guys who try to put you off in wrong directions. You learn from it. But if you're not doing something right, they won't bother with you. And, you know, that's what we've got to take our strength from. And, you know, I've got to say this again, we were disappointed before the show started to find out you didn't have a house in the Bahamas, because Darren, you know, we're looking at a cheap rate for you for a fortnight, so we've had to shelve that. Now it looks like we'll be back in Tenby again this year. But,
hey, Tenby's nice, I've been there.
Nothing wrong with Tenby at all, absolutely nothing. You can always tell when it's summer in Wales, the rain is lovely and hot.
Yes, absolutely.
So anyway, I don't know how we're getting on with the email, so I'll pass you back to Darren. Darren, any more questions come in?
Yes, we've had a load, Kev. Most of them, well, all of them actually, we've just been going through them here, have been covered. Yes, but a fantastic response, but it looks like we've covered all bases. But I would like to touch on a few things. The solutions that we talk about, lads, basically, it's in the community. We've got to start from grassroots, and as Mark said earlier, I don't believe, I agree with him that this current system is on its knees. We've seen it, it's dying in front of us. It's going to come to an end, and as communities we need to come together, sort ourselves out into groups, disciplined groups, and prepare for the collapse of this, and it can only be done in the community. Until then, you know, we need to kick back, protect ourselves, share remedies, in defeating and countering the attack with under this suppression, and just wait for it to crack. I mean, I know we close. There's lots of angry people out there who've been robbed and had their children stolen off them and their houses unlawfully repossessed, and they want to do, you know, hardcore revolution. But I would just say, relax, get organised, because this system is coming down, and we need to have a replacement on standby. Would you agree with that, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing we can't do is resort to the same things that we've done in the past, which was violence and rioting and protesting. Protesting, if you think about protesting, what happens when you take a chocolate bar off a kid? They protest. When we protest, they see us as kids, and rightly so. We're acting like spoiled little kids that have had something taken off us. Until we all grow up act like adults, and I do say act like adults because I still feel like a young lad inside. However, the first time I try running any particular long distance, I soon realise that I'm not the same as I remember myself. Until we actually grow up and start, we've got to take responsibility for our own actions, which is something we've not done in a long, long time. We've let them take all the responsibility for us, chastise us by fining us, sending us to prison, giving us community service. I'll give you an actual personal example here. About 3 years ago, my son had been growing some plants that were apparently, even though they were given to us by our creator, had been growing these plants, and somebody tried to kick his door in, all dressed in black, big hefty bloke, and my son realised that this is not a good guy, so he called the police for assistance, as you might, and with 30 seconds, literally 30 seconds before the police turned up, like maybe he got a radio message were about 30 seconds away, he disappeared. The police turn up, and so my son comes to the door, opens the door, steps out, says, I don't want to talk about this, I'm not feeling safe, and he goes to lock the door. The police say, no, we're talking here, shoved him back in through the door, said, oh, I can smell something. Yeah, right, I'd been to his place, and at the time I didn't know he was growing any plants, and I couldn't smell anything. Anyway, so they go around, they kick the door in, and he's got 43 plants. Now, he was the first guy that was going down the sort of Freeman on the land type route, because that's, and although it's not necessary now, it was an absolute need to understand the statutes and acts and pick holes in it then. It's not needed now because we know so much more. But they took him to court, 43 plants, and during the case, after it finally got to Crown Court, which is where we wanted it all the way, and originally it was just possession, then it gets to court and Crown Court, and they say, oh, well, we're also adding on intent to supply, which of course carries a 15-year sentence. And we didn't think any more about it, but the most important thing my son did is he didn't have a solicitor represent him. The reason for never, never, ever having a solicitor represent you is because a solicitor automatically signs a document stating that you, who is quite clearly incompetent because you've got to have somebody to act for you, will do whatever the judge says. So if the judge says you'll go to prison, you will go to prison. If he says you'll be fined, you'll be fined. If he says you'll do community service, you'll do community service. Whatever the judge says, he has given your consent, because you're too incompetent to stand up and represent yourself, that you will do whatever he said. So, 43 plants is no small amount of plants, trust me on that one. So the case eventually starts. And my son had actually been to a solicitor, several solicitors, to see if they would ask the questions that he wanted asking. Not one of them would ask the questions he wanted. So he represented himself. He did have a Mackenzie friend, however the judge ruled them out and said that he can't have them. Now, there were 3 barristers in the court because they'd come in because they knew it was going to be an interesting case. And the barristers actually come out an hour or 2 later, and they're talking amongst themselves, saying, I cannot believe the judge has just done that. He has not allowed him equity of arms. He's basically stopped him from having anyone to defend him, and you're allowed to defend him under their terms. And the barristers were even saying that's wrong. Anyway, if we go to the chase, the trial starts after over a year. The prosecutor, I'm in court, my son's in the highly secure dock because he's obviously a very violent type, even though he's never had any criminal convictions in his past ever whatsoever. And the trial starts. The prosecutor calls the first witness, and it's a cop. The cop comes out and says, well, we went to such and such's house, and we could smell something, so we searched it. Now, that then got adjourned because 2 of the jury, one had said, well, I'm self-employed and this is going to last longer than 3 days, and it did. And the other one said he didn't believe that the marijuana law was correct, so he stepped down. Now, he should have actually stayed there, because if a law is not correct, it's your duty to tell them that you don't think it's correct. And if a jury decides that law is incorrect, it has to go back to Parliament for them to decide whether it's incorrect or not. Anyway, he left. Next day, so they start the trial over again, and this new jury, except I think there's 2 of the old jury were actually in the new jury. The trial starts over. This time, prosecutors calls the witness, which is the cop. The cop comes in and states this time it's a totally different story to the day before. This time, my son came to the door and he had a baseball bat in his hand, and I'm thinking, what the going on? And I'm starting to lose it now because I can see it's totally fixed. And so I stand up and I have to lean round a partition to say to my son, you can object at any time. And I walked out the court, and the judge, after I'd walked out, I only know because the mates told me, the judge said, he's barred, he's not allowed in the court ever again. Yeah, well, like I particularly wanted to go into a corrupt court. And then it eventually carries on, and it goes on. Well, actually, I went back the next day, not to go to court, because I know I was barred, just to make my presence there known. And the security staff on the X-ray machines, I walked through, and I put up my metal objects onto the tray, although I did have my 2 phones in my hand, but, that's sort of like deliberate. And I walked through, and it goes, beep, beep, beep. So I stepped back through, and I said, I've got nothing on me. I've got the phones in my hand, in plain sight, and they can't see them. This is how good they do the job. So I walked through again, beep, beep, beep. So I stepped back through, and I'm starting to get a little irate now. So I thought, right, I'll show you then. So I strips off and puts me clothes on the side and put my phones on there as well. I didn't strip all the way off, although at one point I was debating it. And I stepped through and I said, see, I've got nothing on me. Anyway, they barred me from the court, so I was apparently banned from the Crown Court, which is no big deal because I was never going to get in anyway. The case went on, and my son pointed out that he was producing these plants to make a certain oil which cures just about everything. And he even got played in court, Rick Simpson, run from the cure. However, the jury weren't allowed to see it. It was just the judge and the prosecutor. And then it comes back in, and my son's explaining everything. And it even says, which probably got in some compassion with the jury, he pointed out that every morning he asked that judge if he was on his oath, and every morning he refused to answer. And then when it was his turn to go up to the witness box, they wanted him to swear on the Bible that he was telling the truth. And he said, I find it very funny that I've asked you every morning if you're on your oath or not, and you refuse to answer. Now you want me to swear under oath. Anyway, it went on, and he got found not guilty, because he brought the intent to supply, which is a 15-year. He got found not guilty of intent to supply, but guilty of production, which we knew was going to get done for anyway. And so they adjourned it for 6 weeks for sentencing. And during the 6 weeks, you're supposed to get the probation service to come round and do a test on you or some rubbish like that. Anyway, they forgot to do it. So come the sentencing, the probation have to speak to him for half an hour and just do a quick summary, and then they hand it over. Now, by this time, I'm back in the court. Whether the judges forgot me or not, I don't know, but I'm back in the court, waiting there. And my son's there waiting because he knows no matter what happens, he's prepared to take whatever they dish out. But no matter what happens, he's going to have his say at the end of it. So the judge sums up, blah, 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 blah. The jury found you not guilty of intent to supply, and I'm going to allow that, like he had any choice. You found guilty of production. So I'm going to sentence you to 9 months suspended for 2 years and a 12-month supervision order. Now, this is the part that really gets to the point now of what I'm trying to say about never have a solicitor represent you. He then went on to say, I'm not going to fine you because I know you won't pay it. I'm not going to give a community service because I know you won't do it. And so that's my judgment. And as soon as he finished his sentence, he was up and out of the court. This is the judge I'm talking about, because my son's still there looking through his paperwork, what he's going to say to him. As he looks up, after the judge has finished, the judge is gone, and that's it. So my son comes out, we go down, we're talking about it, and a guy comes up and says, did I hear that right? You've got 43 plants, and you just walked out of court? And my son goes, yeah. He goes, I cannot believe that. I got done for having 6 cuttings, and I got 8 months.
Unbelievable.
But that was all because he hadn't had a solicitor sign away his life for him, because that's what... This is what... It wasn't that he wouldn't pay it, it's that he wasn't under any obligation to pay it. And it wasn't that he wouldn't do community service, it was that the solicitor hadn't signed his rights away to say that he would do it.
This is where we're learning every day, Mark. And I've been with Guy Taylor in court a couple of times, and, let's be honest about this. If a judge is not on his oath, we're not in court. We're in a room with some rubber stamping clown with a stupid wig on sitting over a desk. It's not a court. A judge, before he can actually become a judge, has to go on his oath. If he's not on his oath, he's not a judge, and everything is void. And, another point you've made there, and we're learning this ourselves, that, you go on about lawyers, they act for you, and that's the clue, isn't it? They're acting for you. The first responsibility of a lawyer is to the law society and not the client. They'll take their 180, 300 quid, whatever it is, a week or, an hour.
An hour.
And the same applies with the barrister. The barrister's first responsibility is to the bar, which is the government, But he'll still take his £2,000 an hour from you. And do they represent you? No, they bloody well don't. This is a scam, and it's something that we're all coming up against, and we're all beginning to suss out. But the important thing is, mate, if a judge isn't on his oath, it's not a court. He's not a judge. He's an imposter. He's a charlatan, and he's a fraud, and we can arrest him for that.
Absolutely, and that's what needs to happen. But Guy Taylor says it the best way about the solicitors and that. If you ask a solicitor, does he work for you, he'll say yes. And they say, if you ask a solicitor, does he work for the court, he'll say yes. And then if you ask a solicitor, who do you work for first, he will say the court. So he's not acting for you in your best interest. This is why you shouldn't have a solicitor. But interestingly, again, this is the mind games that we've been played to believe, that the court is a building. The court is not a building. And I'll explain it this way. A friend of mine was at court recently, but they'd done it their way. And partway through, the solicitor turned to my friend and said, "It's your court, how do you want to proceed?" Not to the judge, to my friend, because they had the court. It was their court. It can be your court if you know what you're doing. And when it's your court, you win.
That's it. The courts belong to the people and not the administrators of said courts.
Yes. Well, the court, my friend was the court. Normally, it's the barrister or the solicitor or the judge that are the court. Or we think it's the building. It's not the building. It's far more simple than we all get, but we're starting to realise it all.
Yeah, and we've all been confused again by the system of legalese and things that they introduce into court proceedings, basically to basically kerfuffle us in every way we look at.
Well, one of the reasons we found out that it's not the building is, this is going back a couple of years now, but when I was looking into council tax, when I actually believed that maybe there was something going off in there that wasn't fraudulent, I started looking into the court's postal codes, and I found that a lot of courts have two postcodes. Same building, two postcodes. And we realised that one of the postcodes was for the actual building, and the other postcode, well, as far as we're concerned, it could have been for a shed at the back of the building. But because you come to me and it says such and such court, you think it's there. It must be there because that's where the court is. It's not. And this is how we also found out about the courts. They basically started to lose the second postcode. Not all have, some still have two postcodes, but they started to lose the second postcode when the council started to hire out the room for the day, and therefore they didn't need this secret separate building postcode, even though it's to the same building. The more you look into it, the more you read, the more you realise, the more you think, how the heck did I not notice this before? And it's because they've done such a good job of, making us believe the fairy tale of what is life.
Well, that's it. Another thing we've been defrauded in and duped on, Mark, but again, we're all waking up. So, not power, and the most of the power that we've got now is to start to use it, yeah? Don't just sit there with a head full of stuff, a head full of knowledge. Get out there, get active, and, get in their faces. That's what I believe strongly.
Well, the thing is, right, even when they come to the site, and I don't spend as much time answering questions now because we've got enough guys on there that know what I know, and some of them know even more than what I know. But whenever you see me, I'll always say it is a game, and it is really a game. But unfortunately, it has dire consequences sometimes. But they automatically come back with, Can't you just tell me? No, you can't tell them, because they have to read it and know what they're talking about themselves. I could tell you exactly what you say and what you do, and then if you get to court and somebody asks you something that you can't answer, you're done. You've lost. You've got to educate yourself, and sadly that does mean doing stuff that we used to do at school, which was read, and I'm not so much sure about the learn side of things, and definitely not today, because the schools today are anything but educational. In fact, they're just they're administered by common purpose headmasters, and they are there to make sure you are a good, obedient slave.
Yes, Guy Taylor had it put it correctly on Tuesday at the meeting we had in Port Talbot, Mark, where he said that my job now is getting easier every day, because years back I had to come into my meetings and say, do you know about common law? Do you know about your rights? Now we do, yeah? And this is how we're all sort of educating ourselves and, getting there on our own platforms and then coming in. We never stop learning. We learn all the time. And, I thought the way Guy put that over is, it's brilliant. And I actually thought about it the following day and thought, my job's easier because people actually know what's going on. 7 years ago when I took on the Linda Lewis case, it wasn't believed. This couldn't possibly happen. Now they know damn fine it's happened. Mickey Summers is probably getting exactly the same reaction. And he's been going at it for years. So the penny's dropping. It's dropping with a lot of people every day. And, we've got to be grateful that we're in this position, and we're only going to go from strength to strength on it.
Yes, absolutely. While we're actually here, there's just something. There's a few ways to deal with certain situations. I'm talking about gas and electric here. I'll mention one. If you want to hear some others, let me know. But I'll just mention one that a friend of mine, how he dealt with. He only has electric because he doesn't have gas. What he did is he read the Electricity Act 1989, I think it is. And had he read that, he had to read it several times before the penny finally dropped. He could see it there, but he knew it was there, but he didn't really get it until he read it a few more times. And in that, it states that the distributor has a duty to connect you to the grid. Now, does that mean anything to you? I'll take it as a no. Right.
Well, to me it means that they can't disconnect you.
No.
Oh.
It means they have a duty to connect you. And this is where the scam comes. The likes of Empower and Eon and all that sort of stuff. They're not the distributor, and neither is National Grid. For instance, if you look up your distributor, I know who it is for my area. For my area, strange enough, I think it does cover your area as well. It's actually Western Power. They're the distributor. Right? So, doesn't matter what company you're with. If you're in Nottingham, or even all the way over to you, probably, I did have and I'm just looking for it. I haven't got time to find it now, but I did have a thing sent by them saying, we're the distributor of your area and we cover this area. Okay. So, he thought about it for a while, and then he thought, wait a minute, they have a duty to connect me to the grid. So what he did, he called up his alleged supplier, which we'll call it Empower for argument's sake, and said, I'll give you 28 days to come and remove your meter. I no longer require your services. His version is that they said, okay, we'll be out, and they did. However, I was then thinking, well, what are you going to do next? Here's where it comes in. Bearing in mind what I said earlier, they have a duty. So they removed his meter, his electric meter, they took it out, he's meterless, I ain't got one. It's classed as shipless, actually, but we won't get into that subject. So then he called his particular distributor, I don't know what it is where he lives, and he said, I've read the Electric Act, and it clearly states that you have a duty to connect me to the grid. Come and connect me. I don't know the time scale it took before they actually came out and connected him direct to the grid. That was over between 18 months and 2 years ago.
I read somewhere, you've just prompted my memory, and maybe I've got this wrong, or maybe not 100% accurate on it, Mark. But where you live in Nottingham, I think that's the base where E.ON is. Now, when you're talking about distributors in different areas, the fact that E.ON is based in Nottingham, because of the cartel and the scam they're doing as far as getting prices going, E.ON cannot be the cheapest provider in your area. It has to be somewhere else.
E.ON is the most expensive provider.
In your area?
Yes. And let me just say this little bit first. Strangely enough, for some reason, Nottingham City Council are in partnership with E.ON, and they are changing all the electrics together in partnership, and that's a scary thing as well, the partnership scam. But you can continue.
Yeah, no, the point I was making there is because E.ON's head office is in Nottingham, it's not allowed to have the lowest tariff in that area. But where I am in South Wales, and I've done a little bit of looking at this and a bit of research, E.ON is the cheapest, but they don't provide the gas. It's somebody else does on behalf of E.ON, which basically goes to prove that A, there's price fixing, and these companies, as you said earlier on, mate, they're all working together as cartels and ripping us all off wherever we go.
Yeah, well, if you watch some of the videos we did when we called up National Grid, and we asked them quite simple questions, we said, look, so, well, say, for instance, you're with E.ON, right? And we decided to change supplier, as we thought back then. So what happened, if we're on gas and we change from E.ON to npower, how do you know that it's npower's gas coming down that pipe now and not E.ON's? And of course, the answer is they don't. And that's because there is no difference. They're all in it together. Like I said right at the beginning, it's one at the very top, just giving you the illusion of choice by those different companies that are not the suppliers.
Yeah.
All they charge you for is for whatever it is, gas, electric, that's going through their property, their meter. They charge you for it going through their meter.
Yeah, and the other point I was told on this is that no gas company in the UK provides the gas because it's all provided by, what's that company's name? Transco.
Transco are the shippers.
Yeah.
They're not the provider. It does get, and this is why they've got away with it so long, it does get quite complicated, but at the end of the day, E.ON, npower, British Gas, whatever you want, they charge you for what goes through their meter. Yeah. National Grid, well, they like to claim that National Grid put the infrastructure in, but let's think about this. Before it was all privatised, we paid for the infrastructure, so it's our infrastructure, so that's wrong. The distributor, which like I said again, this is more trickery, you know, look, you've got choice, look, ours is Western Power, some might be Scottish Power, or whatever it's called. I don't know the full names of them ones because I'm only concerned at the moment with my area. I know that mine's Western Power. And when you consider where the East Midlands, it's a little bit confusing as to why Western Power is in the East Midlands. But hey-ho, that's just the confusion tactics they play with. And as you start to figure it out more, you also start to realise that you are being taken for a complete and utter C-word.
Absolutely, totally. So, look, we've got about 13 minutes to go, Mark. I've got one question I want to put to you before we go. But just to summarise what we've gone through so far today. Water bills, council tax bills, parking tickets, loans, fraudulent loans, mortgages, they're all fraud. And anybody who wants to visit your website, which I strongly recommend if you've never been there before, you'll find remedies and solutions to lawfully not pay debts that you're being scammed on. Mark's website is www.getoutofdebtfree.org. www.getoutofdebtfree.org, and you'll find all the remedies, solutions, ways and means to get your life back and get yourself out of fear, get yourself out of debt.
I can't take credit for the website. It was actually set up by John Whitterick, and then I joined about a year later, and he'd seen the research and how I'd shared my knowledge with others, and he decided we became partners, and we've been partners ever since. So it's not just me, it's John Whitterick as well, just so that you know that.
Yeah, absolutely, and as I said, the Common Law Code of Wales is not me, it's not Darren, it's for everybody, anybody who wants to come in, join us. We're on Facebook under the Common Law Code of Wales. Our website is the commonlawcodeofwales.co.uk. email address, any queries, questions, the Common Law Code of Wales at outlook.com. Right, finally, the last question, Mark, we'll go back to Darren towards the end to see if there's any more questions come in on email. And this has really got nothing to do with your work in Get Out of Debt Free, but you're friends with me and the group on Facebook, and I've noticed you're not going to be going on Facebook anymore. Now, we know it's pretty dodgy, and you've transferred everything across to a site called Ceylon, SWEN.IS, and I also noticed that they do an sort of encrypted alternative to Skype called unseen.is. Can you tell us a bit about it, mate, and, what's the reasons for it?
Well, originally they purport to be from Iceland, although having checked them out, they're actually based in Silicon Valley, so that part's not so good. However, they don't ask for any identification whatsoever. You can go on any name you want, and this is one of the main things that attracted me there, because come January 1st, Facebook, or before that, and as soon as they asked me for my government-issued photo ID with a signature on it, they can stick right up there, I'm sure I don't need to complete them words, and this scene could be, I'm not saying it is, it could be them under a different guise, it could be as it purports to be, I don't know, but the fact that it's not asking me to give them, the last time I went to the toilet, for me that's great, and I'm going over there and I'm cutting back posting on Facebook. In fact, it's very, very shortly I will be leaving forever, and I won't be going back to Facebook. And even if this scene.is doesn't pan out, then I'll either find another or I'll just get off it altogether. I've been sick to death of Facebook for a long time, and there's a reason for that, which I'm not going to elaborate on, but it was due to that asking for government-issued photo ID of me a few years back, and I told them to where they could go then as well.
Okay, well, keep us informed, mate, and, if this is going to work out, because Facebook isn't ideal, believed to be run by the CIA as well, so, if seen.is or, the Skype equivalent, unseen.is works out, I think we'll find that a lot of people will quite happily move and disappear over to it.
Well, thousands have already gone, from when I actually said I was going, and now I've once, because when I first went on there, I thought, it's okay, it's still in its early stage, like very early stages, it's a little bit more interesting to get on with, but it's also, once you understand how it actually works, for instance, if you want to post a YouTube clip, it says there's like a picture of a video camera with two reels on it. You click on that, you put your clip on there, and at the moment they're only taking video clips from YouTube or Vimeo, but you put the clip in there and add it, and then that's added to your post, and you can do sound or links or pictures, and they're all there represented by the little icons, and you can add them in, along with whatever else you've typed. And it is looking rather interesting, and like I said, as soon as that came along, and I did register for Unseen quite a while back, but I never actually got round to doing anything, and then when I saw this, I thought, I'll go and have another look, and I decided, well, I'm gone, simply for the fact that I haven't got to give you the last time I went to the toilet, the last time I did anything. Unfortunately, on Facebook, people do tend to post the last time they went to the toilet and things like that. Why? I've got no idea. But this seems, at the moment, at any rate, to be very interesting, and I'm going to be, that's where I'm going to be from now on. I'm leaving Facebook January 1, or if they ask for my government-issued photo ID before that, then I'll be gone as soon as they ask for that.
Okay, keep in touch with us, and we'll be watching what you're doing, Mark, and no doubt that with myself and the group, we'll probably switch over to it, very, very soon, depending what sort of restrictions and nonsense that Facebook try and place on us. So we've got about 7 minutes to go. Just to let you know, Mark, this is only our second broadcast, but we're well into 3 figures of people listening to us live tonight. So it does go to prove that, for the second show, that there is a need for what we're doing. And obviously the likes of yourself coming in to, spend a couple of hours on it is very much appreciated indeed. obviously, the full podcast will be available probably within the next 24 hours on our website, the commonlawcodeofwales.co.uk. Before we go, I'm just going to hand you back to Darren so Darren can chip in before I finish the show. Darren, it's over to you, mate.
Thank you, Kev. And I'd like to thank you as well, Mark. It's been a great show, very informative for all our listeners, I know. What would you leave our listeners with? Any advice, Mark, for the situation and the days we live in, just to close the show, mate?
Yes, yeah. If you go onto the website, the first thing I would do when you get in the forum is go to the how to use the forum and main site page, because we put video tutorials of how to do almost everything, and it will answer a lot of the questions you've not even thought of yet. Also, when it comes to PCNs, bailiffs or anything like that, don't go after it half-cocked. Read, educate yourself first, and then challenge. If you just jump straight in, I'm not paying a PCN, you're going to find bailiffs at the door, most likely. And if you don't have to deal with bailiffs, you could end up with your car towed away, or even worse. When you're educated yourself and you understand how it all works and what their powers are, which is virtually nothing, and what your powers are, which is goes to the high as you can possibly imagine, you'll empower yourself. But if you jump in half-cocked, you're asking for a fall.
And what I would say as well is, Mark, if you're new to the game and you're looking at getting remedy for yourself and you don't want to be a slave or scammed anymore, don't be afraid to ask. There's plenty of people out there now who will happily give you the advice and guide you through it, so you're not on your own. If you've woken up at last, whenever it was or whenever it's going to be, there are forums out there, there's Facebook pages, there's Mark and his colleagues' excellent website, getitadebtfree.org, and the solutions are there. But not just that, you've got the moral support to help you and keep you on the right path and give you the results you're looking for.
Absolutely. And it is, if you take the courage to take these first steps in freeing yourself, you really do find that it is quite a magical journey. You know, the conditioned mind demands proof. And shortly after, having the courage to take the steps, you sure enough, you'll be provided with that proof. And it does become easier and almost fun in the end, Mark, doesn't it?
Well, I had a letter recently where that someone was apparently going to turn up and discuss a alleged debt I had, even though it's statute barred. So I'm waiting, and I've waited in no end of times for these guys that say they're going to turn up, but they never turn up for me. And I do know they turn up for others, so why they don't turn up for me, I don't know. But I'm always here waiting for them. In fact, sometimes I'll even call them up, when are you coming, so I can make sure I'm in for you, but they never come.
It's funny, when you lose the fear of the TV licence and you tell them to get lost, you hope they come back so you can have a little bit of entertainment to yourself, but they never do. And that's a shame. So, anyway, Mark, on behalf of the group, thanks again for coming in, mate. And possibly next year, we could maybe have you come down to Port Talbot and bring Mickey with you. We'll accommodate you, etc. And see your expenses, okay, to come down and talk to the Common Law Group of Wales meetings. Yeah,
that's no problem at all. As long as the system hasn't already crashed, in which case we'll be already on our way to a free, loving society.
Exactly what we're looking for, mate. So, listen, thanks very much. Mark, I don't know, for those listening in at the moment, we're back next week, which is the 18th of December at 7 o'clock. Same channel, the Common Law Court of Wales radio show on Freedom Talk Radio. I don't know if you know, but we've got this chap, Mark, just let's say yes or no, or if you want to chip something in. Next week we've got Dave Witcher, or Lord Dave Witcher, coming on.
Dave's a great guy. He's done his research. Unfortunately, when the first time he went to an actual eviction and the cops and bailiffs just totally ignored the law and trampled through, he was quite shocked. But he's now far more clued in and realises that the whole system's totally corrupt.
Brilliant, absolutely great. So we've got Dave Witcher, or Lord Dave Witcher, as he likes to be called, on the Common Law Court of Wales radio show on Freedom Talk Radio next week. So listen, we're well into three figures tonight. On behalf of everybody from the group, thanks for tuning in. And of course, thanks indeed to Mark Ceylon for taking the time out to come and be a guest tonight. Thanks again, Mark. Much appreciated.
Thank you. No problem.
Okay. See you all next week.
freedomtalkradio.co.uk.
Let's go!
This is the most diverse, most amazing, one of the funniest radio stations you could ever listen to on the internet. I've heard so much stuff from the ups, the downs, the left, the right.
The politics, the non-politics, the schmolitics, whatever you want to call them.
It's great.